What are some critical elements of building a dream team, an effective team, and recruiting well? Hi, I'm Kayla, and I'm your host of the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. And hanging out with me today is beautiful Stefanie Fox. Hi, Stefanie. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. When we were talking about booking it, and she was like, I'm obsessed with team building. I was like, perfect. You're going to be great. I'll have you on. We'll talk about what does it mean to be obsessed with team building, because I think that's a really good quality to have. And so tell me a little bit about yourself, Stefanie. I know that you're a business owner. You've been in the industry for 22 years. You're a mom. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So gosh, I am, as you said, 22 years into the beauty industry. It's not an industry I ever knew in my childhood that I wanted to join, which is just wild because you meet so many people that are like, I always knew I wanted to be a hairdresser. That was not me. I had no idea until I actually unenrolled from college to go to cosmetology school. And I came home and told my mom that I left a full academic scholarship to be a hairdresser. And I thought she was going to kill me like on the spot.
Yeah. If you've been there, you understand.
Yes, exactly. And sadly, too many people in the beauty industry have been there. But, you know, the great thing about our industry is there's just so much opportunity and potential. So I've had an awesome career to date. I absolutely love it. As you said, I call myself like team building obsessed because it's really all about the people that you get to impact in this industry. And
for sure.
Yeah, I'm a mama to 2 little boys. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I own Talent Match. So I help salons recruit.
Fun.
Yeah.
That's really cool. See, and then that's good. So you're like really obsessed with team building. Like, hey, let me help them recruit really good people, and in turn also help them, you know, be able to build a leadership team. So if you're listening and you're like, you might have a great leadership team. I mean, I personally believe like you can never have enough information on how to lead people well because everything's always evolving. And that's, I think, the hardest part is like the world's constantly evolving and constantly changing. And there's like to keep up with that and like how, you know, different generations of kids are coming out. It's like you're hiring for your salon and you've got, you know, different generations that you're hiring for. So how do you start to build those tools to be able to lead effectively? So I'd love to start out a little bit like what is some important elements of team building, like building a great team? Give me like the most important elements.
Yeah, well, really what you just said is a perfect segue into what I would say is the most important element. So you mentioned how there's all these different generations in the workforce, right? And everything changes so rapidly. The most important element of team building is your willingness to evolve with all of those changes. It's the resistance that people carry as leaders to how they've always done things, or frustration at the new requests that can often feel like demands or entitlement, or like you no longer have control, your workforce does. Like all of that manifests itself into negative emotion in a leader. And you can't lead well if that's where your head's at. Like you have to be able to lean in and ask yourself, like, how do I meet these needs? Or if I can't, what can I do? And why is my business still a place that they should want to work? Like you then kind of get into the, how do you showcase your value? Right. So that would be, I think the most important thing right now is like, how willing are you to always evolve and not dig your heels in and get frustrated with change? Because change is coming like all the time.
It's so hard because I think so many people do really struggle with change, and they get like, you know, especially as salon owners, man, you got so much on your plate. And so like you have to raise your team, and you have to make profit, and you have to build your business, and you have to market, and there's so much to handle in that. And I think that sometimes when it comes to leading your team, you get to a place where you're like, just figure it out. Like you want people to come in and be able to just do it themselves. I'm like, well, if they could do it themselves, then they'd be booth renters or they'd own their own salons, but they come to be part of a team for a reason. So how do you start to, what practices do you start to put in a place to be like, to start being open to that kind of change? Or how do you start to become like a natural leader to where that is a part of who you are?
Yeah. So I am a big self-proclaimed data nerd. Like I like to look at information. I love psychology.
I love that.
Yeah. Like I am always seeking information. And so one of the places I've spent a lot of time studying is neuroscience and how our brain has the ability to adapt and evolve. And I think that as leaders, what we have to think about is how do we interfere with our own thought if the thought is that won't work, no, or a frustrated response? Like how do we create the interference in our own neuronal network that says, wait, stop, should I revisit that and look at it a different way? Like, let me ask questions. You may still land where it still doesn't fit for you. The change doesn't work. You still might get there, but you have to actually be able to teach yourself to stop just saying no, or stop just saying that won't work. And it's actually that like repetitive behavior of learning how to pull a stop in that changes the way that you think, that would allow you in a situation where you're feeling overwhelmed, frustrated by team, unsure of what to do next, that like, okay, wait, I'm going to pause. is what lets you learn to think differently, because you can critically think then and not just make, I'll give a quick kind of analogy. It's like if you were on a diet and you're about to take a bite of something that wasn't on your diet plan, you have to train yourself to be like, hold on, like that's not what I'm supposed to eat. But if you're in a moment of like, you haven't eaten and like you haven't taken good care of yourself and you're just hangry and you're like, I'm just going to eat it. Like you just go, right? And you haven't allowed that stop to happen, then you don't meet your goal of weight loss. And it's the same with leadership. Like if you want to build a solid team, you have to learn how to insert the stops when your thinking isn't going to suit you well.
Yeah. To realize you're going down a rabbit trail of like, I love the analogy of the diet, because I think also like in order to avoid those moments where you're like, where you need to have that stop moment, you also set yourself up, like do some prep before so that you don't reach the point where you're starving. So like even with your team, like how do you set yourself up? How do you set your like the foundation of yourself so that it's easier to have that stop and make those adjustments when things can start to go wrong? Because that's the hardest part, is like you think everything is smooth sailing, you think you got it figured out, and then something goes wrong and you're like, oh wait, like it starts to poke holes in what you thought was you had it handled. So how do you start to set those practices into place?
Yeah, well, I think what's really interesting, and I learned this in my years as a salon owner about salon ownership, is that there's really two elements that matter. It's like finding team and keeping team, and finding clients and keeping clients. Like those two stakeholders make your entire business. So it is all about the people. So as much time as we spend on all the ways we think we can drive profit or drive sales, like every single element of it comes back to these two stakeholders, which are people that we have to engage with. And so when I think about being, team obsessed and team building obsessed, it's like, you have to take care of yourself as a leader and know that you love serving people. You have to decide that people have the best intentions, even when it seems like they don't. Like you have to come from a place of optimism. And when you're feeling defeated, you have to be responsible for filling up your own cup, going to events, reading books, getting a therapist, having a life coach, like developing yourself and your skills, because we all go through like the mountain and valley reality where we run our business and it's like, we have the best team ever and it's so good. And then someone quits and then we're like, because now money's tight. Yeah. Like, or there's a walkout and your heart gets broken because you feel like you've helped these people. Like it all comes down to how you're able to manage and regulate your own emotions as a leader. And so I think if you want to set yourself up for success, it's like, how do you get better at that? How do you get better at your own thinking? Yeah. How do you shift your mindset? How do you pour into yourself? How do you know when your cup's low? Like, so you so you're not hangry, right? Because if you're hangry, you're going to eat the whole thing. Like, but if you know you're getting hangry, you're like, I have snacks in my bag. Like I should eat something.
Yep. You're like, you start to identify, like, I know what's happening to me and I'm going to do what I know I need to do to take care of this. Cause also there's a lot like blaming other people. When things go wrong, you're like, oh, well, it's their fault, or this happened, or like, oh, I hired the wrong person, or they have bad attitude. And there's a lot of, we have a community group, and I feel like there's a lot of people who, they do point a lot of fingers at like, oh, it's them, rather than realizing that a huge part of your team's success is really you and how you handle them. Now I want to talk about something, because this has come up a lot, and I'm curious what you have to say about it. But like, there's a salon owner, and they're trying to build their team. What would you say about somebody who's like, maybe they have to realize too that maybe they're not the right fit to lead the team, and the value of hiring somebody to be the one that comes in to lead the team? Because I think that everybody can be leaders to a degree, but I do think that there is like hiring somebody in. So what would you say to that?
Yeah. So I think I understand what you're saying, but let me repeat back just to be clear. So you're saying I'm an owner and my skill set is not really to be a great leader, but maybe operationally I'm a savvy business owner. So when I think about back to my own experience running a salon, and I've, consulted and worked with salons all over North America, and I look at this chunk of businesses, it's like, you have to have a visionary inside of a business. Sometimes that is an owner and sometimes it's not. The visionary often carries with them this kind of cheerleader capacity because they are inspired, and they then exude an energy that inspires other people. But they're not always the best at the keeping people on the wagon of inspiration, because they kind of just expect that, like, you should just be inspired. Like, life is inspiring. Yep. I am a visionary.
Like, I'm inspired. Be inspired with me.
So I feel that way. Like, I can get inspired very, very easily. And I never understand people that aren't coming along with what's cool and fun. And, so I look at salon business and I think you've got to have a person that is operationally really sound to keep you grounded and focused. And you have to have a person that can dream, inspire, vision, and breathe that in other people. And if that's not the same person, which it can be, some people are dual strengths, If it's not the same
For
person,
sure.
you have to find the person, right? Just like if you're the visionary owner and you don't have an operational person to ground you, you have to find that person. So like, I'm a big believer of like the Gallup's organization, Strength Finder, and like play to your strengths. I am always going to be better with what I'm naturally good at. And so I'm a huge advocate as a business owner of like, go find who's better at what you need than you are. Like, don't try to be it if it's not you.
Something Jason always says is, don't be afraid of people who can do the job that you're doing better, because that's what you want. You want people to come and replace that. Because like you think, oh yeah, but like I do feel like a lot of salon owners feel like they have to do everything themselves. Like I built this business. I'm not like, maybe they're not at the profit margin they think they need to be in order to hire somebody else. But then if you think about it, like what if hiring that other person is what's going to get you to the profit margin you want to be at? To think about like where are your strengths and weaknesses, what is lacking in your company, and where can you bring in people that could really propel you forward? Because like again, just as like owning a salon, having a team to own your salon too is something to be said in that. So going back to team and building that team and having like unbreakable, like what are some elements of like, so team bonding, does that mean like, bonding? Let's talk about bonding with them, with each other. Like how do you cultivate a culture in your salon where they can really connect with each other?
Yeah, well, it absolutely is led from the very beginning with who you hire and what you're inviting them into.
Nice.
People are saying yes to something that they feel connected to and believe in. And if they're not, if they're saying yes just because it's a job, it's never going to work anyway. So the goal is, how do we get people into our business that see our vision? Their heart is tugged by our vision. We are marketing our brand to them in a way that they're like, I want that. Like, that is my place. And then when you come in with that existing awareness of like, I have a place here, we're like-minded, I fit here, then it's about making sure you're really living the story that you told to get them there. So I think with team bonding, it's directly related to how you show up. Like if you cultivate an environment where people are connected, they trust each other, they, say hi in the mornings, they bring coffee in just because they walk through the salon and realize like, hey, that toner bowl sitting on the backwash, like I'm going to grab it for you because I'm heading to the break room anyway, I can wash it. Like when you lead by example and when you encourage that behavior in the team that you attract, people show up. Like they love on each other. They want to be with each other. I mean, look how much time we spend at work. You want to like the people you work with.
Much. Yeah. You want it to be an extension of a place where, like you don't show up to work and it's exhausting and it's like people are pulling your energy and there's like a complete imbalance of people, like, how people show out. Like I know for our team, like we just came back from destination training and it's a lot of work. Like we pour ourselves out and we all show up to do that. We know that that's what we're showing up to do, but we show up really, really big for 5 days and then we get to go home. We have a couple of days off, we can just relax. But when people show up to that event and they don't show up the same way that we do, they don't last very long because you can tell the people who show up to show out and pour into others. Or like believe in that mission. Like you're talking about, like hire people who believe in your mission and are pursuing that, because you can tell and the clients can tell, the people that come to your salon can tell when people are just there to make a paycheck or they actually believe in what you're doing. And that's having the right team will cultivate the right guests to even stay in your salon as well.
Yeah.
I love.
One thought on that I think that's important for salon owners to understand is that our teams have lives outside of our businesses and they are more than ever interested in, what I hear a lot of salon owners, they literally like air quotes, like work-life balance, because they're frustrated with trying to navigate this. How do I give you the schedule you want and still have a productive and hopefully profitable business? But really, like we are employing people. We are not just employing hairdressers. We're employing people who have lives, right? Yeah. So we have to constantly be recognizing that if they're not showing up how we need them showing up, it might not be related to us at all. It might have something to do with what's going on in their life outside of us. And if we want to retain a talent inside of our brand who is having a hard time outside of work stuff, then we have to have the right kind of relationships, growth triggers in place, coaching support, mentorship. Like it's a full scale package when you show up as a great leader to say, hey, I see you. Like it feels like you're struggling. I'd love to chat with you about it. And if I'm not the right person, I want to get you the help, right? It's like showing that you care. You don't have to be all in somebody's personal business, but you have to have eyes and heart and ears to say, I know this isn't how you want to show up, but it's how you are. Yeah. And I'm imagining there's something else going on. And if that's where we need to be right now, like let's be in it. And when you love people in that way, when they come out of that, they're still with you.
Yeah. Well, I love that because, I mean, if you care about the people more than caring about, filling warm bodies in your salon, you care about them and their lives. I love what you just said. Then people are going to stay with you so much longer because they're going to see a future for you. They're going to feel cared about and they're going to feel like they belong because we all want to belong somewhere.
Totally.
Like we all want to feel like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, that we, like we don't, not, I've never met anybody who just wants to make a paycheck. And I'm sure that there's people out there, but people want to do something, especially people get into the salon industry. Like they want to serve people, they want to work with their hands, they want to be creative, and they want to love what they do. And I've met hundreds of people now that are in the industry, and it's literally the coolest group of people I've ever met in my life, but they want to belong with somewhere. What would you say? Because I know I get this a lot, this question, or just people saying yeah, but I can't serve everybody's needs. I can't give everybody the time off that they want or the schedule that they want. And I can't do it all. Or what would you say to that? How do you balance of having something consistent and showing up for people the way that they need to be shown up for?
Yeah. So I see this a lot too. I see owners who lean all in and say yes to everything. And I would call them the people pleasing bunch. Yeah. And I see owners who sit on the other side of the spectrum that we just talked about, where it's they're resistant to everything. And it's the answer is always no. So if I was going to say, what does it look like to be in this and actually grow a profitable business and, hopefully high revenue salon as well, you have to have leadership skills, which looks like, okay, a stylist has a desire for a schedule that doesn't make sense for them against their financial goals. Well, as their leader, it is your responsibility to A, know their goals and their vision, B, use your expertise to talk about what it's going to take to get there, also to extract from them what they think it's going to take to get there, and then be able to share very candidly. What I hear you saying is you want to be at $100,000 take home pay by your third year. You're telling me you think that's going to take you working 30 hours a week and you want to focus on color and extensions because they're high ticket, but you don't want to work any evenings and weekends. So I want to show you some things and give you some options. I can look at the data and tell you if that's realistic or not based on what we've seen or what you're going to have to do to make it realistic. And if you can't have that conversation and point out the facts, and then also I think in today's world, I do a lot of study of today's talent. I have the industry's largest workforce survey of what do they want. If you're not willing to give them opportunity to still say yes to that decision, even if it's not their best decision for their goal, you're going to hurt yourself because talent's going to feel look, tell me the facts, help me see the path. I still want to make that choice not to work evenings and weekends. And maybe we can touch base about it and I might change my mind in a month when my paycheck doesn't look the way I want. But if you just straight up tell me no, I'm probably not going to hang around. That's the reality of today's talent. They want autonomy like no other workforce that we've ever employed before because of that work-life balance. So I would say, in summary, it's lead well. Learn how to have hard conversations, know your facts, know what it takes to grow as a hairdresser. Don't just tell people you have to do something without clarity on why.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Well said. That was really, really good. Cause we've said this a little bit earlier of your team, if you get into the business and you own a salon, you're a salon owner, you're listening to this, then you have to realize, if anything else, that your team is such a vital part of how, of you being profitable, being successful. Like you said, the two things is team and clients. And so to own a salon, such a big component of that is learn how to lead your team well. So if you don't feel like you personally are a good team leader or a leader of team, then find the resources, find the people, hire them, hire coaches, hire the people that you need that can come in and help you support and do that. Because what you said, Steph, was incredible. Really, really good. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to recruit well and finish the conversation talking about just your team and how to bond them together and to be a really good team leader. So stick with us and we'll be right back.
We're Forest, born on the salon floor and built for and by hair and beauty professionals like you. Forest is your marketing, your reporting, your reputation management. You need one easy-to-use system that does it all. Forest, together we grow.
Are you ready to increase your retention and revenue and convert website traffic to clients? Then you're ready for Maya. Maya creates better business relationships by pairing the right clients with the right beauty professionals. Use promo code HPSA for your first 2 months free. Visit joinmaya.com to get started.
Are you tired of not knowing what your hair color is costing you? With Salon Scale, we take the guesswork out for you so you can cover your back bar expenses, reduce your color waste, and generate more profit in your salon. Click the link in the description to get 10% off your first year.
Sustain Beauty Co. has two of the best tools to help you save water, time, and a bunch of money. Join the clean water salon movement with EcoHead's water-saving shampoo nozzles and scrummy plant-based microfiber towels. Available at sustainbeauty.co.
Welcome back to the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. I'm hanging out with Stefanie Fox, and we have been having an amazing conversation about team bonding and how to build incredible teams, how to be a really good team leader. And now I kind of want to talk a little bit about recruiting, because you had said something in an earlier half of this about like to have a really good team, you also have to like recruit really well. So what does that look like? What does it mean to recruit well?
Yeah, well, gosh, recruiting is a term that nobody in beauty used until 2020. Everybody just said, I need to hire. Which they are not the same thing. And so what does it mean? I would say first, it means knowing how many hires you actually need, because I talk to salons that are small and large every day. And I ask them the question, how many people are you hiring this year? And they say something like, well, I'm always hiring. And I'm like, I hear that all the time. I hope you're not always hiring, because hiring costs money. Hiring requires you have an influx of clientele that's going to fill the book of that person so that you're not carrying the cash flow and strain of payroll for that person. Like there is strategy to hiring, and the way that you get to hiring and ultimately high revenue growth and ultimately profitability is to know how to attract in candidates that can be hired when you're ready to hire. So in recruiting, what we talk about is, recruiting is a function of marketing. It is about building a pipeline. It's how many people have to be at the top of my big old pipeline to get me the number of people I need to hire. And so it's about understanding like what are the steps to that. And they simplify it with 3 steps when I train. It's like, you need to know your story, which is who are we? Not just what do we do, because we're good at that part. We talk all the time about that we do hair, we do skin, we're barbers, whatever. So it's like, who are we? Why would somebody, if they were going to peek behind the curtain into your brand, want to be in there working with you? You have to know that. You have to start telling it. And that's where the actual outbound marketing happens. You've got to be in the funnels that your applicants live in, so that you're putting all of that brand awareness marketing in front of them. And then you got to make sure when they show up in your brand, everything you said about your brand is real. So I call that living the story. So know your story, tell your story, live your story. I kind of summarize it in those 3 ways.
Wow. That's really cool. I love, so tell your story, or know your story, tell your story, and live your story. And that's like, I feel like that's kind of hard to do in terms of like, if you don't know where to even begin. So how would somebody start? How would somebody be like, how do they start to know like what they represent? Because I know there's like branding, there's like, who do you represent as a salon? What do you want people to know? Like there's a lot of components to that. So where would people start?
Well, the way people typically start, I would say when I get into the conversation initially, is they say, well, we have a mission statement, we have values. And I say, that's all good. But what I want to know is what happens in your business that tells me those things are real. So it's really an exercise of understanding like what behaviors happen. How do people show up and interact? What does our team engagement together look like? The example I gave earlier, like you grab the shampoo bowl when, from the toner like experience, and you just drop it in and clean it for somebody versus walking by and seeing it laying on the backwash. Also, you might see that somebody's running late. So you walk up and get their client started and seated with a coffee. Like those are behaviors that would tell me your brand cares about fill in the blank, friendliness, team engagement, help, care. So we're looking at like, who are you? Not just like, what's the mission that's written down? What are the values? But if I actually came in your brand, what would I see happening? And with my clients, we look at the data that I have collected that tells us what does talent care about when they pick a job. And then we also have a lot of data sets around what they say makes them keep a job. But if I started just on the recruiting funnel and I said, well, what do you need to talk about? Like the who are you? There's 5 things talent claims as their top preferences. And this is from the 2023 survey. There was 22,000 students and stylists that responded. So it's a massive data set.
Wow.
They said, number 1, I care about my ability to grow somewhere. So if a salon wanted to start recruiting, they should start thinking, how do I help somebody grow? And how am I showing that, right? What's the telling of that look like? Number 2 is team. Like, who are these people? What's the culture? What's the vibe? How are you showing that? Number 3 is flexibility. Not just what's my schedule, but what's my dress code like? Where do I have autonomy, right? Could I bring a new service into the business that doesn't exist if I wanted? Can I adjust my schedule? What's my vacation policy? Like all of those things. 4th is education. And then 5th is leadership. Like how does the leader here help me grow? So recruiting to get started is looking at those 5 key areas that are talent priorities and saying, who are we in each of these? And then it's starting to design content that tells the world who you are in each of those areas.
Yeah. And then I love the follow-up of like then actually living that out, because it's one thing to think, oh, this is who I want to be. Another thing to show the world through social media, which everyone knows, like, you know, don't catfish the public, you know, like how are you living that out? Which I love was the component of how do you set those practices into your salon to actually be what you say you are? Because I feel like there's so much out there of like so much social media with, you know, social media booming so much. Like there's so much that says one thing and then you act a different way. And I can tell you, like when you walk into a place, a salon, your guests are going to know if it's real, if what they think, if they're attracted to your salon, they show up and it's not what it looks like online. You can feel it. It's a big gap difference. So aligning those 3 was what you're saying. That sounds amazing. I love that study that you guys did. That's very informative. So if you got nothing else out of this whole episode, hopefully that was really valuable to you to learn what people are looking for. That's huge.
Yeah,
that's really crazy.
You know, I really want to make sure salons understand like directly from the workforce, which came from kind of part of our earlier conversation where it's like, I would talk to owners all the time that would just tell me all the reasons why these changes don't work. They're not going to evolve. It's like, dig in their heels, bury their head in the sand. And it's like, wait a minute, what if we just asked the workforce, what do you really want? Like what matters to you instead of standing around at events talking about what we're frustrated about and what's not working? Like we can fix this, you guys. Like let's do that. Let's just ask. So that's what we do.
I love that. Cause I mean, if you want to know, then like you need your staff to stay. And if you want to know how to make them stay, then you have to ask them. A lot of salon owners will be like, well, like you want to build your salon the way that you want your salon. You don't really think much about anything else. And you build it in your format and your way. Like, oh, they all have to follow these rules and do it this way. And there is something to be said about having structure and having something. But I know Steph said something earlier about being flexible with that and being flexible to and open-minded to what your staff wants. And that's how you're going to retain them. Because like, you've built your salon model and you have your business plan and you have all that stuff. But if it's not working, sometimes you got to look a little bit more internal and be like, okay, well, maybe what I thought was going to be successful isn't. Doesn't mean you're not successful. Just means that you need to tweak your mindset a little bit to open up to what's out there. Like, you know, the stats that Steph just shared, like, find out more information and ask people and get those people to support you, to be able to fill in the blanks of like, like I love how you just said, like, don't miserate. Like, what are we going to do? This keeps happening. Or like, what's the solution? Find solutions to that. And just be open to the fact that the way that you've been doing it up until this point may not be the right way to be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I often talk about, like the Blockbuster reality where, you know, they were a brand that made all of their money in one lane of profit called rewind fees. And then you have this company called Netflix show up and try to radically change the world of video. And like Blockbuster's like, oh, that's not possible. It's never going to work, you know, and we see exactly what happened with that, right? So resistance to change because we're afraid. In Blockbuster's case, they were afraid. Like their primary profit came from the very thing that Netflix was going to completely eliminate. And they could not see a way forward to have a brand that would make money like they made money then. And that ignorance and inability to say, well, what if and how and maybe, like, they're not in business anymore. Like, and they're one of so many case studies of brands that fail to evolve as the world evolves around them.
Wow, that's so powerful. Because I mean, like Netflix saw like a problem and you look to your community. Like even, and we talk about, we've had episodes on branding, things like that, but you even look at your community of guests, like yes, hiring the right people, but also like your guests, like what are they looking for? Like what are the people in your community hungry for in a salon? You know, like you think about like what kind of environment do the people that walk around that you like, what are your current clients looking for? Like, do you got single moms? Do you have working moms? Do you have, you know, college students? Do you, you know, whoever you serve, knowing what would benefit them even more? Because then you recreate an environment that like you're like the game of like owning a salon is like serving people, serving your team, serving the clients, and creating a safe space for people to come in and just be loved on, be cared for, pampered, all those things. So I love that. This has been amazing, Stefanie. Thank you so much for hanging out. I want to ask one more, like, what are some common mistakes that you see people making? Because I think sometimes people can connect more with like, you speak about mistakes and you're like, oh yeah, that's me. So what are some common mistakes that people make when it comes to either, you know, team bonding or recruiting?
Yeah. So I would say common mistakes are feeling like you have to say yes to everything out of fear. And in fact, what you should be thinking is you did start a business with a set of values and a vision. And yes, you should evolve that as, times evolve. But if you have a key, I call it a stake in the ground, it really matters to you, then you have to talk about why you're holding your ground around that thing. And if that is valuable to talent, they will still say yes. Right. And if it's not valuable and you choose not to evolve, you're probably going to be like Blockbuster. But so, like the mistake I see them make is, thinking, oh my gosh, I just have to say yes, or, it's not going to work. I'll never hire. And that's not true. You should not feel hostage to your business. Yeah. You should be informed, and you should know why what you're doing is of advantage to talent. I would say the other mistake when it comes to recruiting, the biggest mistake I see people make is they're not talking about their team and those 5 things I said talent cares about on Instagram. Yeah. They are not talking about it. They're posting a bunch of pictures of what they do, which is a bunch of shots of the back of people's heads of hair. And everybody knows that they have a salon. Everybody knows they probably do hair in there with clients and talent. So let's show something else. Let's get in there and show, which, by the way, we have so much proof that when we do that, the clients love it too. Like your attraction for new clients, like your funnel of inbound new clients will increase, your engagement will increase, your reach on social, like all of it is impacted when you start sharing authentic, amazing content. So, definitely stop only posting pictures of hair and start posting videos of the people that work for you.
The culture.
Yeah.
People want to belong somewhere, and people want to connect with you, and they want to connect with who you are as a company. Some people don't. Some people want to walk in, get their hair done, walk out and be fine. But if you want long lasting people, if I'm looking for a salon and I go to an Instagram and I see all this fun videos of how fun they have there and what their, their business looks like. I'm going to be like, I want to go there. That looks sweet. I want to think of Yelp, you're going picking a restaurant, you're looking at the plates of food, be like, what looks good on these things? That stuff matters. It matters to our culture. And if you don't adapt to that, you are going to get left behind. Don't be a Blockbuster. Adapt to what's changing and what's new and what's fresh, especially as more generations come into the world of social media and now everything with AI and everything's evolving and changing. So be present to that. Thank you so much, Stefanie. This has been really informative and really fun. I'm really glad that you joined me today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I love the chat.
Yeah. So if you got value out of this, I know if you're listening to this, you can't say it, but if you are watching on YouTube, drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought. And if you're in your car, just shout it out and be like, that was great, or that was terrible, whatever you're at. So thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time on the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast.
You've been listening to the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and check us out at profitablesalon.com for more episodes, content, and to help you turn your salon into the business you've always dreamt of.